Good morning, Canadians, Albertans, and Westerners. It's early. I know this video likely won't see much attendance here, especially being the long weekend in the morning after, but it's very, very important people view and share this video. I've caught up on a lot of Messenger as I get ready to send my ICC letter, get it together anyway, and send it out to all of you so you get to view that before I send it. But I want to have a talk here this morning. All the messages I've caught up with, some videos I've caught up with, including MP Shannon Stubbs, and I want to talk to all of you today. 3 critical things here that have to be addressed, knowledge that has to be imparted for Canadians. And you know what, if you want to share it out to international groups, even law firms that are going about things, and doctors I've listed here too. Possibly I should have tagged Dennis Modry in this, but I know lots of people know him. I know him too, so we could get this to him anyway after the fact. But I'm gonna share now as I see people coming on. Like I said, it's very quiet this morning, but it will get viewed later today and throughout the weekend. So I put merging economics and international law, things Canadians need to know, 3 topics. The first, the letter that's circulating right now, 1931 to 49, on MP Call out of the Edson region of Alberta, an MP, former of Edson in that time period. And he wrote a letter to Premier René Lévesque at the time, talking about Canada not having a constitution and that the provinces are all individual and sovereign, and that's how it should be. Unfortunately, that's not correct. It wasn't correct then. And here's the funny part, everybody, you have to understand this. If the letter is real, which it could possibly be, or it's not, either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because the time period, when we look at Westminster, 1931, we are talking about a time of heightened colonialism. When England, Great Britain of the time, what is UK now, Great Britain of the time, ran the world, ran international law. At that time period of Canadian history, world history, because this is global change and absolute international law and how things work. When that letter was written, we were in a period of League of Nations transferring to the UN. UN was crafted in 1945, and unfortunately, if that letter's real, if it is or not, doesn't matter. If it is real, that MP was in a time of League of Nations. League of Nations international law is not international law as of 1945. Crafted and drafted the World Constitution, Charter of the UN, bound by our allies, including in the process of that drafting, Canada. Now, was it public? No. Privy Council, PM, and absolutely the United Kingdom had absolute oversight over Canada during that period. So MPs were more writing in terms of Canada being a colony of UK traditional sense, and the UK absolutely ran Governor General, ran all the lieutenant governors of the provinces. UK has never codified a constitution. UK runs in what's called small c, and that is the system imparted on Canada. So to say Canada never had a constitution or it's not bound is a falsehood, and it's a false narrative. It's called small c constitutionalism. Canadians, all those in all the groups, you share this out because it's not right. It wasn't right then, and it's definitely not right now, not since post 1948. Now, Canada hasn't changed not a lick, which they should. It's true, none of the provinces, not any of them, have ever codified a constitution. A Charter of Rights, a Bill of Rights is not a constitution. It's just a promissory for the people of the rights that should be protected. But in no way, shape, or form in Canada, through any real big C, do we have any rules of governance Absolutely zero at all for the province's division of powers inherited from our Canadian Constitution, which is real. It was binding then, the 1867, as it is now. The United Kingdom runs on absolute parliamentary constitutionalism, meaning acts and bills. To this day, they're not the only country, but they love, live, and swear by it. I don't agree with that. I don't want that. I don't think a lot of Canadians want that kind of system. Nevertheless, it's what Canada has, with some written codification, but zero rules of governance. The letter that everybody's referring to and trying to say, oh, look, they say it. It's absolutely false. That MP was in error, in a grievous, outrageous error then. It wasn't even right then. And it's absolutely, since 1948, not right now. Not even close. That's not how our system works or the world works at all. And it's definitely not correct. It wasn't correct then. It wasn't correct now. The provinces can codify 2/3 of their rights and codify rules of governance. The people can do that. If you can convince any one of all 10 and the 3 territory premiers to do it and have a lieutenant governor stamp it off and ascend it. I don't know how likely that is with our broken confederation. I'm not saying it's great. We have a small C constitution, mostly small c in Canada. And then we have a portion of big C, very limited, okay? Extremely limited. We're inherited from the UK, who is all small c, entirely small c, meaning acts, bills, absolute authority of the politicians. Not cool, I don't care. It's been years of this, like centuries. We're talking centuries. Again, I'm going to just touch on this first brief point. I know there's more to get through, but we can go all the way back to what everybody likes to go to, Magna Carta. Again, a charter, a system for the people, the birth of common law. Great, awesome, that's all good, except for there's zero rules of governance, meaning zero authority of the people to have that enshrined and imposed and make sure the politicians follow it, or at the time, monarchs follow it. Zero kind of codification of rules for your leaders or monarchs to follow that. They don't have to. And we see that even today. It's been an age-old battle for 900 years. It's an age-old battle. That's the problem with what's called small c constitutionalism. I'm going to get this education out, but this is important. I just gave everybody worldwide in any of these systems the absolute legal truth. And you will find it with most of the world's greatest legal constitutional experts. We'll have to look at this. Right now, just on Twitter, after post my Oxford, another one chimes in, writing about international law, basically telling the USA not to impose its powers the way it does. But nevertheless, 5 countries have absolute authority, and we're going to get into why all our Canadian politicians are absolutely wrong. It's why all of you have a bad narrative, because our politicians are both corrupt and ignorant. That's how bad it is. We've elected more idiocracy, I call that, I guess, idiocracy, where you're letting idiots rule over you who don't even understand our system domestically, legally, or, in fact, internationally, none whatsoever. And in my Oxford paper, and why I put in the title, Merging Economics with International Law, because I believe I'm the first person in the world with an economics degree and to go through law as hard as I have in the last 4 years, 2 specific years with world experts, and to take my knowledge in economics and create an international law formula for every nation in the world placed in that paper so that you can determine where you sit in international law, how likely you will be to violate law. And in that calculation, in Canada, for the country of Canada, your politicians, all of them across the board, 75% of the time are going to break international law. That's not a good number. Other nations are even higher, some are lower. You can take any nation when you read my paper, and when you get into that section, and how I put that together was I took every single binding law made in this world since 1945 against every nation of the world. A tremendous 2-year amount of work to create the formula of how many countries broke binding law or didn't sign or didn't ratify, which non-binding ones they ratified, and that's how the formula is determined. It's real, it's legit. I'm the first Canadian in history to combine the two so that any lawyer or any country politician or any policy developer can take that formula, apply it to their type of country to determine how likely they will, in the system they're in, going to break international law. It's important because we do it all the time. Ignorant and unknowingly we do it, even our politicians, as I roll through some more points here. So doctors, here's a prime example, even Dennis Modry, not to slam any of you across all the world and with this pandemic. Here's the problem. International binding law. The Binding Five ruled COVID-19 a global pandemic. Global pandemic. Even if you're an expert doctor in a whole range of different countries, doesn't matter. You're subject to the law too. And your country is subject to the law too. Now they can start going like this, but when you get into human rights, or you start going against those allies who ruled unanimously, and people have to understand this, even doctors, regardless of your country, the global powers ruled at a pandemic. Last year, I believe, very latest May of 2020, they absolutely ruled at a pandemic. It might even be the end of March. From that point, they outlined absolutes that the world was to adopt. Whether they like it or not, countries chose, like they always do, take my formula, Canada, wow. 75% failure rate on binding law, and they did. We saw it with freedom of religion, freedom of movement, deep divides according to those 5 binding powers ruled in the UNSC. This is a global pandemic. Whether we like it or not, that's what they ruled, and there are rules for that. Domestics have certain authorities, but when it gets to human rights, what you're allowed to do, what politicians can suppress, that's the grievous error. That's why I'm going to the ICC. And doctors have to understand that. I get it, you have a medical narrative to get out, but you can't break law either. None of us can, or our country gets subjected to those binding powers, and it hurts us. In trade, in relations, all of it. And you don't know the damage that's done. And this is for Canadians too. So you understand why. Your country screwed up bad. They did. They screwed up bad. That's part of my challenge. I'm not going to get into all the narratives because some are and some aren't. Maybe some are experts, some are not. I don't know. I only stick with what I know is absolute according to international law bound on every nation of the world. And those laws are here. They've been here for a very long time. Whether your government wants to give you that narrative or not, they don't. Which brings me to part 3. And this is absolutely imperative for all gun owners, for gun rights, everybody. Gun rights are the biggest thing here right now in Canada into Bill C-71. Shannon Stubbs goes into it last night. Grievous error, not only domestically in Canada for constitutional law. Canadians understand this. Gun rights activists understand this. The Canadian Constitution and division of powers. Gun rights are a provincial right for provinces. Each province must codify that in a provincial constitution. They don't want to. They haven't codified your property rights, leaving it open for any politician to come up with any narrative they want. Now, federally, if you use your property in a criminal manner, then the government federally can step in, which is what they're trying to do. They've overstepped. It's unconstitutional. Bill C-71. Lawyers are trying to fight it, but they're finding out the very, very hard way. All these groups, CCFR, NRA, all of you are finding out the real impossible situation you're in. Trying to go federally on a provincial right. You've already screwed up. You're going in a narrative if you're trying to challenge to a Supreme Court of the federal government on a federal bill, putting legality in there and criminalizing the right of that property, which is wrong. You should be individual provinces going to each premier. Codify a constitution, how to govern, cement the civil rights, which is guns. It's property. It's a civil right. Maybe different provinces will have different ideas of how that's going to work. The federal government is only limited to deal with you if you had it codified in a civil right of property in the province. Real rules set in stone, established in a provincial constitution, making it inalienable and forcing politicians to not be able to make new acts or allow lieutenant governors to block things by going through the federal system and handing it back to the prime minister, because it's not Crown, everybody. People have to wake up. And again, to international law. Colonialism's gone. Hello, Canada. 1952, absolutely. Cemented in international law, 1948. Many, many nations around the world, majority signed on by 48. So it's imperative we get these narratives out. Canada doesn't operate, or is to not operate, in the colonial capacity they are. The colonial powers of Lieutenant Governor, Governor General, which impact all our courts, gun right, lawyers, law firms, all of you, this is imperative you understand this. You're dealing with a system of colonial power given to your federal government, overbearing on your premiers through lieutenant governor. They're using a crown power made illegal in this world, been illegal for more than 70 years, and we're still going through it. In 1960, cemented in absolute international law. Convention of Decolonization. Mandatory. No UNSC voted no. Not one. There were several who abstained. In a future date, they could come back. UK could come back and say, you know what? We don't want this. We want colonialism back, and they could unbind it. They could unbind it. They've left that window. But as it stands today, and through all history, it is bound in international law unless UK decides to say, hey, we're going to break it. But Russia signed. They're in. Most of the powers signed. It's just the colonials who didn't. And if you guessed UK and France, you'd be right. They abstained. They didn't vote no. They abstained. But they got their international superpowers from USA and Russia at that time. They said, you get rid of colonialism and we'll give you this new power in the new League of Nations called the United Nations. That's reality. UK and France accepted it. They abstained in 1960. That's not a no vote. That means it's bound international law. It was allowed to go to the General Assembly at that point, and a majority bound it into law. So it's bound to Canada. Canada has to change. Lawyers, you want to fight for gun rights? That's how you do it. And you force your premiers in each province to codify that civil right, a division of federal power to the provinces, absolutely for the provinces, cement the property rights, like many other property rights. There's so much that can be done in just provincial constitutionalism alone. And this is what Canadians don't understand. There are federal rights, there are international legal rights you have, and then there's provincial rights you have. As long as there's zero codification, zero rules of governance, you can kiss all your civil rights goodbye on a whim with any elected premier and by way of a prime minister through all those lieutenant governors that he or she appoints. Appointed, not elected. Wake up, Canadians. You're in an absolute autocracy. And all the gun rights groups, if you haven't figured this out and you're not going to try and look at this as it really is, and maybe leave the comfort zone of Canada and go out on the international stage and find out how it's supposed to work and what you're actually supposed to do. Because as long as we're fighting federal bills over provincial rights, we're screwed. We're screwed. It's like navigating a legal system that's not supposed to exist federally. This bill shouldn't even exist federally. That's reality. And it wouldn't if we had provincial constitutions. It would be absolutely impossible. CCFR, NRA, at least in the province of Alberta, go to Jason Kenney and say, codify this stuff. Open up the books. We want a constitution. Let's go through all property rights. And there are groups and groups and groups and organizations that would be fully welcome to help and develop those laws through all the people of the province, through these forums I wish to proceed with the CCP, Canadian Constitutionalist Party. You'll have the best international lawyers to work with, and I think each individual province, I think they would love to have your groups there involved helping to get this done. They would. You just need the majority, and you need that premier to agree to it. It's tall order business, as premiers sure love. They're absolutely colonial autocracy that they've been given in Canada. Zero rules of governance. They get to do whatever they want with zero accountability. Pretty tough, but that's the reality. And lawyers, law firms in Canada, it's time to start waking up, because the false narratives that the government criticizes people criticizing religious groups or criticizing people traveling, this is all because of the failed system of Canada. The lie, the fallacies, the breaches in international law. Let's get our country together. You want to talk about get your house in order? All these pathetic parties saying, let's get our house in order. I got an idea. Let's get a provincial constitution before you talk about house in order, because you're in an absolute autocracy. Let's talk about federal dismemberment and redesign of colonial power that is not even legal in this world. Canada is an autocracy that has to change. Has to. And it takes you, the people, to go forward and start pushing back. And if you elect a party that will mandate all this and get it done, and it wins a majority, case closed, it's done. Use the crown power to break the crown power. Think about it. You elect Prime Minister. This party, I wouldn't even probably want to be Prime Minister, but whoever it would be, you get that and the mandate, and we mandate that through using that colonial power, assigning Governor General, Lieutenant Governors across every province and territory, and locking out the ability for any province or territory to ascend any legislation until they agree to open up the Constitutional Convention for every province and territory in Canada. Don't give them any power to ascend any bills until they give you, the people, the right to design and develop your Constitution. Absolutely. Get your big C, how to govern powers for the people. And then you can worry about your charter rights, your civil rights, and everything else, because you have already built the power, the how-to. And when the politicians are locked into how to govern, and there's accountability for the people and the systems in place where you have organizations, police forces, military, able to step in when a politician breaks the law, because there's no law right now, Canadians. Limited, very, very limited federally, and absolutely none whatsoever for any of the premiers. As long as they kiss the Prime Minister's butt, ultimately, they can do whatever they want. And they do. These two orgs, two heads of the same snake, left and right, is an illusion. You're up here, pure autocracy, and you all know it. All of you know it, you just don't know how to articulate it. That's why this video is here this morning, just to go through 3 major bullet points. Again, we're going to go over that. The first was the letter for René Lévesque from Call from 1931 to 49. Absolute error. It was an error then, and it's an absolute error now. Breach in international law and absolute breach of what domestic law here is in Canada, as wrong as that is. Second thing, doctors have no legal authority because the Binding Five have ruled this a pandemic, whether you like it or not. I suggest doctors, medical professionals from all these countries, read my paper, figure out why you're breaking international law all the time, learn the world as it is, not how you want it to be, because you don't have a say. Outside of USA, Russia, China, UK, and France, when they bind something, all 5, that's absolute law, and nobody has any say. And that's what people have to understand. As simple as that term is, when 5 come together, that's absolute. Tough titty for the rest of the world. And in whatever profession you're in, when you start championing things, you have to realize what's legal, what's illegal. And unfortunately, pandemic is what's legal. I didn't make the law, I'm just telling you what it is. So deal with it. That's what I'm doing. I'm dealing with the world as it is, not the way I want it to be, because I have no authority to change it. None of you do. And third thing, gun rights, property rights, provincial constitutionalism. There's international law against colonialism, cemented. I urge all gun rights organizations, CCFR, NRA, list goes on and on. I suggest you start looking at that, going through the colonial system, pushing premiers, go on that route too. Go to each and every individual premier, demanding codification provincially of your civil right. Get it done, or it's only going to be given to the federal, like this Bill C-71, that has absolutely no business over the provincial jurisdiction of property. Only when that property is used in a criminal manner. And there's the federal government breaking the law. But why? Because none of the premiers are standing up to them. Why? Because they're in cahoots too. They're in league. It's called autocracy through colonialism. Illegal internationally, but still alive and well in Canada. And used specifically for the role of Governor General, all Lieutenant Governors, your Privy Council, and absolutely your appointed Senate, all appointed through colonial power. That's absolutely illegal in this world today. What does that tell you? Broken Confederation. Those are my 3 points. Share the video. Albertans, Canadians, right across the board. Share, share, share. I know it's long. Tremendous amount of information here, people. Get it out. Get it out. Get it out.